Trapmore gang, global tensions are reaching a boiling point and Donald Trump is teasing World War III, okay? It sounds like Trump is ready to get busy all over the world, okay? He is getting very aggressive when it comes to potential military intervention in Iran, where they're basically stepping on protesters, and Trump is saying that he might step on them in response. There's also this potential invasion of Greenland, which Trump has been teasing. He's saying we can't let the Chinese and the Russians get their hands on it, and he's also teased his potential plans to collapse the Cuban government so that he can smoke the big OPAC Cohiba style. I swear I'm getting a little bit nervous about World War III. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm actually getting scared. But before we get all of that out the way, all right, in America, related to the situation with Iran, things just took a tragic turn. Just yesterday, was it yesterday? Was it even? Yeah, just yesterday, like not even 12 hours ago, okay, we saw this very, very just heartbreaking footage of a U-Haul truck plowing into a crowd at the Iran protest in Los Angeles, okay? Basically, they're saying that people are getting too riled up when it comes to this Iran stuff. Some absolute psychopath decided to plow into a crowd, and this might just be a little sign of things to come when it comes to Iran, America getting involved, absolute morons deciding to take things into their own hands. I'm just really sad to see this. So I'm gonna play you this clip about the protest, and then I'm gonna break down what Trump is saying he's actually gonna do in Iran, and this is why people are so upset. Before I show you any more of this, I just want to give you a trigger warning, okay? I don't think you're going to actually see anybody getting injured, but this is a very distressing situation. It's a distressing scene, and I just want to give you just a fair warning for that, okay? We're just documenting this for journalistic purposes, but I just want to give you guys a warning that this is a pretty, just like, heartbreaking video. So this guy's plowed into a crowd, right? People are now running up on the van, and the guy does actually end up getting arrested. He gets confronted by the by the people on the street, and basically, like, they were out for blood. They were ready to tear him out of the car or the van, and luckily or unluckily, the police basically turn up to arrest him, and they've basically got to try and keep this bloodthirsty mob at bay while they're trying to arrest the guy. There's a dude on the roof of it and everything. He stomps out the windshield. Like, they're trashing the truck. Like, it's not really U-Haul's fault what happened, but they're really just trying to, like, tear this guy apart. They would be willing to tear him from limb if they could. Now, what's crazy is there appears to be there's some signage on the sign of the U-Haul that seems to suggest that maybe this guy was actually in support of the protest, and that this was just, I don't know if this was some kind of misunderstanding. This was an anti-Iran regime rally. It didn't look like the stuff on the side of the U-Haul was saying that, you know, the regime should be protected. It sounded like it was actually anti the Iran government on the side, unless I've got that wrong. But what I'm seeing on the side of here, it says no Shah, no regime. USA, don't repeat 1953, no Mullah. So they're basically saying no Shah, no regime. They're trying to like take down the regime that's over there. But anyway, all right, they was trying to drag this guy out the car. The police ended up jumping in, and, you know, don't get it twisted. The police aren't trying to protect this guy like, you know, like, oh, they're his homie and like they're trying to protect him. They're trying to protect him in terms of, look, you guys aren't allowed to just kill people and just deliver extrajudicial justice on the streets of Los Angeles. This guy needs to have his due process. And look, we got him now, okay? We're going to have to keep him alive so that he can face charges. But people are literally facing off with the police. I see people trying to get at the police for even trying to arrest this guy and take him away peacefully. But, you know, they're trashing the U-Haul. You know, it is just absolute chaos. Absolute chaos on the streets of Los Angeles. Now, let me tell you why Trump is getting busy with Iran. So he's officially been briefed on a range of new military options for strikes against Iran, and he basically is weighing up his options of how hard he's going to hit them. Okay? So, yeah, let's see what he said.
Says he is ready to help the Iranian protesters. CBS's Willie James Enman is in West Palm Beach, Florida tonight, traveling with the president. Willie James, what do we know at this hour?
Well, Jerika, good evening to you. A U.S. official tells CBS News that the president has been briefed on new military options for a possible strike against Iran amid those widespread protests and a government crackdown on communications.
The president is weighing his options in Iran, writing on Truth Social this weekend. Iran is looking at freedom, perhaps like never before. The USA stands ready to help.
I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground.
When asked this weekend if the shooting of protesters would be a red line for the president, a U.S. official said, quote, only Trump can determine what the red line is. Some lawmakers and supporters of the president want the U.S. to get involved.
So some people want America to get involved. Now, there's some interesting stuff in the comments here. It's saying, what the F? Isn't Trump the same guy that asked Chief Esper if we could shoot American protesters in the legs? People saying how much United States policing are Iranians in Iran willing to take? People saying, think about your own country. America first. Protests like this could easily happen here in the US. Trump should be taking care of America first. This isn't the same Trump that campaigned for a second chance. Now, let me tell you what I think of this that's really interesting. I think Donald Trump is on some consolidating power stuff right now. He is basically letting it be known that he is not to be pushed around. America is not to be pushed around, and they can get involved in any situation that they want. What happened with the kidnapping the president of Venezuela, Maduro, or arresting him, if you want to say it that way? He's basically letting everyone know, especially the Chinese, you just linked up with this guy. The Chinese delegation was just in your spot, and we just kidnapped him day after. We could get the Chinese delegation out the way if we wanted to. He's basically letting it be known, okay, all around the world that America can do whatever they want. And I feel like with this Iran thing, yeah, there's plenty of reasons why America should just leave it alone, not get involved. But if America decide that they don't like the way that Iran is treating their protesters and the way that Iran is basically, getting in cahoots with other countries in the Middle East to cause problems, you got Hezbollah, this terrorist cell, they're saying there's narco-terrorism going on. You got Iran back in Hezbollah. Apparently they're taking guns and weapons and drugs, and it's all being funded through Venezuela. It's crazy. So Trump is taking any excuse, right? He's going to say it's about drugs when really it's about oil. And he's going to say that it's about protesters when really it's about terrorism, okay? And I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying that's what's going on. And he is basically flexing the American might for the whole world to see. Now, the whole situation does seem to be barreling towards a war or some kind of military confrontation. And interestingly, okay, the death toll of the Iranian protests are rising. And even the regime there say that they're ready for a fight, whether it's against their own people or America. But let's keep it real. These Iranians, bruh, they ain't got the muscle to mess with America. If they really want to go to war with America, it's going to be over with. They're going to be cooked. We're going to be scraping them off the sidewalk.
Iran has warned that it'll retaliate if attacked by America, following 2 weeks of widespread anti-regime protests and threats by the US to strike over the killing of protesters. There's been a brutal response by the Iranian authorities. One human rights group says it's verified almost 500 deaths. The protests, which were sparked by soaring inflation, have spread to more than 100 cities and towns across every province in Iran. The country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has claimed the unrest is being manipulated by his country's enemies, and the government has called for nationwide marches tomorrow in support of the regime. Lise Doucette's report contains some images that viewers may find distressing.
Mashhad, Iran's holiest city. Now it burns with a different fervor. The hometown of Iran's supreme leader, a place where protesters want his clerical rule to die. Across Iran, the anger boils. Tehran in the north, Kerman in the south, the roar of the crowds, the boom of the guns. But courage has a cost in Iran, a huge cost. This forecourt is full, ground zero of grief. It's an open-air morgue. We've tried to count these body bags. There's at least 180 here. And the trucks keep coming. The government is also burying their dead. Coffins carrying police and civilians carried by the crowds. The presenter on state TV lists 10 provinces where they fell. Killed, she says, in terrorist acts committed by the US and Israel. Death to America, MPs shouted in Parliament today. The Speaker had a warning for President Trump, who's been threatening to attack Iran again.
See, this ain't a good look, right? You're talking about death to America. America will come and smoke every single one of you. You, all of you will be in a pack. You'll be in a backwoods. We will be smoking your dumb ass, all right? I'm not an American, but I love America, all right? When people want to say, oh, America shouldn't get involved, they shouldn't get involved in Iran, these people want nothing more than the death of all Americans. They want death to America. And sometimes when you put out that demonic energy, it comes back twofold, okay? So maybe, I'm not condoning it, I'm not calling for it, but if Trump pops out and smokes every one of these fools, we're not going to mourn. We're going to roll up a big fatty.
So that you are not miscalculating, know that in the case of an attack on Iran, Israel, as well as US military bases in the region, will be our legitimate targets.
To decide their own future.
Iran.
Try it. Fuck around and find out. So look, these clowns, okay, they feel like they can bully America around. They can say death to America. They can say America K and just get away with it. And Trump's not going to be happy about this, okay? Trump is going to do whatever he wants to do. Whether or not you agree or disagree with him, that's not the question at hand. Well, the question at hand is, does Trump have the balls to go and smack these guys in the face and hit them where it hurts, all right? They're out there killing protesters. They're getting tough with their own unarmed civilians in their countries, but they're talking about, oh, death to America. Bruh, America will push your shit in. All right. So while the Iranian government actually tried to shut down the internet to stop their protesters from communicating, another fine American, not American, I know he's South African, mate, but Elon Musk, all right, he stepped in. All right, he's an honorary American at this point. He started providing Starlink to help people stay connected. And, you know, Elon giveth, Elon taketh awayeth. All right, there was a period when he was getting a bit heavy-handed, taking away the Starlink from the Ukrainians, trying to give Putin a little upper hand. And as I explained in a previous video, look, they basically want to drag out the Ukraine-Russia conflict as long as possible. Everybody's making a ton of money on it. And it is very, very sad. But Elon has a lot of power. He can turn that internet on or off easily, and the Iranians are livid. They're thinking we're going to turn off all the internet in our country, and Elon just popped out with a Starlink. Look at this.
And one of the most remarkable things about this is watching these images that are we're seeing out of Iran. The government, of course, has cut off the internet to the entire country. They've even cut off landlines, like old-timey phone lines, because they're trying to keep these images from getting out. They've been cutting electricity to cities. And in stepped Elon Musk with Starlink. The reason that we're seeing these images right now is because Starlink, using satellites over Iran, is able to, and it's not a perfect system. It's not everybody has the access that they want or that they need, but enough of these images and video is getting out, which is the only reason we're seeing this. And one of the things I think is so interesting.
So look, the government are trying to shut down anybody even documenting the chaos and the protests and what's going on, and Elon Musk is circumventing that. That is crazy. Now, amid all of this chaos, okay, Trump is even claiming that Iran is now actually starting to show that they're willing to negotiate, despite being in Parliament talking about death to America. Really, behind the scenes, there's some bitches, and they're trying to piece it up.
US President Donald Trump has vowed the US will intervene if the Iranian government is found to be committing acts of violence against its citizens. He's also said the regime is trying to negotiate with him.
The leaders of Iran called, they want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate, yes. Negotiate what? We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up. But we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate.
Well, joining me now.
So they're saying Iran are some bitches. They called negotiating. They said, please don't push our shit in, don't Daddy Trump. All right. They said, please, Daddy, don't push our shit in. And Trump said, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Let's set up the meeting, but I might push your shit in before we meet. All right. So Cal now jumped to just yesterday. OK, Trump has also been doubling down on wanting to take over Greenland. OK, that icy country that's just like a little off the coast, north and west-ish of the United Kingdom. All right. Another very cold and desolate rock that I call home. But basically, the word is that there's plans being drawn up for the potential invasion of Greenland, and Trump wants to get it before the Russians or the Chinese is.
Donald Trump has ordered his special forces chiefs to draw up plans to invade Greenland, reports say. Feeling emboldened by the stunning capture of Venezuelan tyrant Nicolas Maduro, Trump's team are increasingly worried that Russia or China may seize the strategically critical island before they do, according to White House sources. Policy hawks in Washington, led by political advisor Stephen Miller, are egging Trump on to annex the isle before it's too late, the Mail on Sunday reports. Their insistence comes despite warnings from European officials that NATO would implode if an attack on the Danish territory were to take place. Trump has now asked the Joint Special Operations Command to draft up plans for an invasion, insiders claim. But the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the ground are understood to be resisting plans, highlighting that such an invasion would be illegal and unpopular with Congress. One source said Special Forces heads were trying to distract Trump with less controversial measures, such as intercepting Russian-linked shadow fleet ships or launching strikes on Iran. Trump's rhetoric on invading Greenland may also be a tactic to distract American voters from the US economy before midterm elections arrive, UK diplomats say. Some European officials also suspect invading the island may be a ploy by Trump's MAGA faction to quit NATO, as it would be easier to destroy it rather than getting permission from Congress to quit the pact. Washington officials have wargamed what they call an escalatory scenario, a situation where Trump uses military action or political coercion to break Greenland away from Denmark. The worst-case scenario in these exercises led to the destruction of NATO from the inside, a source claimed.
It's an interesting strategy. If anyone knows about NATO, okay, it's all the good countries in the West. They all linked up together, all right? They made a peace treaty and basically said, look, if we get hit by Russia or China, we're all going to back each other up, all right? We all clicked up, all right? And Trump basically has been saying, yeah, that's cool, but you guys ain't paying your dues. You guys ain't been paying enough towards the growth and development of this organization. You guys need to up your subs. You need to pay a little bit more each month. And Trump's basically since then been trying to destroy NATO. Now, Putin is the one person that would love to see NATO destroyed, because they're basically the one group of people that he's most shit scared of other than America. But NATO is America. But that doesn't mean that Trump wouldn't still push Putin shit in solo dolo. But the destruction of NATO would be very bad for Europe, because that would basically mean Europe is a sitting duck for the Russians to step in. Countries like Poland, Russia, low-key, Romania, they'd be throwing a few missiles over there, here and there, and I ain't gonna lie, Europe, there's some bitches in Europe, okay, because there's countries like Poland and Romania that have had Russian bombs basically fall just on the line or on the border or a little bit further than the border and blown their shit up, and they're all too pussy to do anything about it. Article 5 should have probably been invoked a couple times. And don't get me started on Russians using like plutonium, like basically using nuclear material to assassinate people on British soil, chemical weapons on British soil. Oh, but we're too pussy to invoke Article 5 and push Russia's shit in. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. Now, because Greenland officially belongs to Denmark, European leaders are basically talking about sending in troops, and Denmark is legally obligated to defend Greenland with force. But if the Americans pull up with the big straps and the dicks, I don't think you guys are going to want that smoke.
Seriously. More recently, however, the Danish Defence Ministry warned that Danish troops would take a shoot first, ask questions later posture if US troops were to invade, in accordance with a 1952 standing order which requires Danish troops to, quote, immediately take up the fight without waiting for or seeking orders in the event of an attack on Danish territory. This directive was created in reaction to Nazi Germany's attack on Denmark in 1940, when communications partially collapsed and many Danish units subsequently didn't know whether they should fight back. Now, we've got to say, the idea of European troops actually shooting at American ones feels pretty unlikely. Rather, it'd probably be more of a Tiananmen Square type situation. They'd probably just try to get physically in the way, thus forcing any US troops to use violence in order to advance. Nonetheless, this would still be an incredibly risky strategy, with a real risk of conflict between European and American troops.
What kind of pussy-ass cucked military is going to say, we can't fight back, we're just going to get in the way and let the Americans shoot us? What kind of pussy shit is that? They might as well just roll it up and just let America take Greenland. I'm sorry, and I do respect the sovereignty of these countries. If America actually does invade Greenland and starts to kill Danish troops, we're gonna have to decide how we feel about it then, because that is super fucked up. We can't have that. That's Russia, Ukraine on a whole different dimension. But okay? But y'all Europeans and y'all Greenlandians, whatever we want to call you, you guys ain't necessarily doing right, you know what I'm saying, by the Russians and the Chinese that are trying to get their little piece of what you got going on. But interestingly, okay, it's not the first time that Trump has tried to get his piece of Greenland. Okay, Trump allegedly tried to buy it, all right? Or basically, America tried to buy Greenland in the past, all right? They're trying to make moves, and Channel 4 News basically broke down some of the history of Greenland and what's going on with that.
Donald Trump seems pretty obsessed with Greenland, but this isn't the first time the Arctic has been in the geopolitical spotlight, and Trump isn't even the first president to try and control the island. Time for some history.
Beware of the ice.
During World War II, Nazi Germany invaded and occupied Denmark.
The whole country was in their hands within 24 hours.
Greenland at that point was a Danish colony, so America deployed troops to secure the island before the Nazis could reach it.
Victory in Europe brought wild rejoicing.
At the end of the war, a liberated Denmark retook control of the island, but US troops stayed. In 1946, President Truman offered Denmark $100 million in gold, worth about $1 billion today, to buy the island.
Enemy jet bombers coming in over the Arctic wastelands would be able to attack without detection until it was too late.
Denmark rejected the offer outright. During the Cold War, Greenland's strategic importance was amplified because of the GI-UK gap, the crucial naval choke point formed by the waters between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. NATO, which included the US, feared that Soviet submarines would use this gap to access the North Atlantic and target mainland America and Europe. So the US constructed over a dozen military installations in Greenland, including early warning systems and radar to detect Soviet aircraft, submarines navigating near the island, or missiles flying over the Arctic. Ultimately, the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 led to a period of reduced Arctic tension and the neglect of these facilities. But for the last decade, Russia has been rapidly expanding its military presence in the region. And right now, America's only operating base in the Arctic, outside of Alaska, is the Bidufik Space Base, originally called Thule Air Base and built in 1943.
Lots of people took their eye off the ball. They mothballed their bases. And then as Russia began to surge back, everyone's been playing catch-up.
All of this has Western military experts worried, and Trump's got a plan. But who will win the race to control one of the strategically most important places on the planet? Watch our full explainer on the Arctic on YouTube. Donald Trump seems pretty upset.
So, yeah, the US are moving crazy. You know, a lot of people always talk about Trump. He's playing some kind of 5D chess, right? I feel like there's probably stuff we don't know. I feel like there's got to be things that the president is privy to that the average person doesn't know. I'm not trying to say they're smarter than anybody else. But what I am trying to say is that I feel like there's got to be some better, more strategic, hidden reasons of what Russia and China have planned that we probably spied on them. We found out secretly what they planning to do. And America can't really say how they really feel. But it's basically some shit where it's like, bruh, we just can't let them get their hands on this thing. Like, it's going to be a problem, okay? Now, here's the interesting thing, okay? The US actually has a long, illustrious history of basically bullying Denmark, right? The US bought 3 Virgin Islands from Denmark. The deal took 50 years, right? They got their gold coins up, all right, damn near 100 years ago, all right? Apparently, okay, the US, the Virgin Islands were basically bought under the threat of military force, all right? And basically, there was just a whole bunch of crazy back and forths. There was negotiations with the US and Denmark in 1865 at the end of the Civil War. America basically negotiated a treaty with Denmark to cede the islands, the Virgin Islands, to the US in 1867, but the Senate rejected it, partly due to an anti-expansionist sentiment that set in after the Civil War. So after the Civil War, people were saying, no, we can't be taking land, we can't be conquering areas, taking over parts, looking after parts of the world that don't belong to us. We need to just focus on America. America first, all the way back in 1867, and the Senate was apparently angry at Seward over his support for Andrew Johnson, president, during his impeachment trial. Negotiations started in 1890s, but they fizzled with the onset of the Spanish-American War. And then in the aftermath of that war, the US gained Puerto Rico in the Caribbean and Guam and the Philippines in the Western Pacific. So Puerto Rico and Guam are still US territories, but Philippines got independence after World War II. The US was a larger imperial power now, so with greater interest in expanding, they said, hey, we trying to be imperialist again. They had their sights set on building the Panama Canal, and they wanted to get St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, St. Croix, I don't know how to say that, to secure the future canal route. But again, The Secretary of State negotiated a treaty with Denmark. The Senate ratified the treaty, but the Danish parliament rejected it at that time. And so by 1915, all right, the fear of a German takeover in World War I, the US decided to make another try for the islands. And after the sinking of the Lusitania, that was a very controversial warship that was sunk. Or no, I don't think it was. I don't know if it was a warship. I think maybe it was like a regular, like a Titanic-style boat, but ended up getting sunk under military. That's just my rough recollection, but I'll have to go look that up. But basically, okay, they feared that Germany might annex Denmark and launch more attacks from the Danish West Indies, so Danish leaders resisted ceding the islands and their majority black inhabitants to the racially segregated United States. That's really interesting, all right? They said, look, we're trying to protect our black inhabitants, our black Danes, if you believe, like, you know, they really had their best interest in heart against the United States, their segregation and institutional racism. Now, that's crazy to say it all the way back then, but hey, that's what was going on. Now, apparently, America insinuated that if Denmark didn't sell the US the islands, it might just go and seize them to prevent Germany from getting them. And that is exactly what they're doing now with Greenland. They're basically saying we can't let the Russians or the Chinese get it. And they're saying it was a bullying tactic, and it worked. So to prevent a US military attack, Denmark was a neutral party in World War I, some bitch-ass shit. Denmark negotiated a treaty with the US to basically transfer governance of the island to the US, and the US paid Denmark $25 million in gold coins, okay? Now, interestingly enough, okay, we're going to have to wait and find out what happens with Greenland. Denmark might not roll over in this day and age, but at the same time, America has the biggest sticks. Metaphorically and both physically, they will come and take whatever they want, whether you like it or not, whether it's right or wrong. That's how they're going to play it. But over in Cuba now, as of yesterday, okay, Trump has officially cut off all oil shipments that were coming in from Venezuela to starve the Cuban government of their resources. So this is what he posted on Truth Social. Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators. But not anymore. Most of those Cubans are dead from last week. They're PACs from USA's attack, and Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from the thugs and extortionists who held them hostage for so many years. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the most powerful military in the world, by far, to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Thank you for attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And he even hopped on social media to joke about making Marco Rubio the new president of Cuba. All right. This is actually insane that he would even crack a joke like this, right? They're saying Dirty Don is eyeing Cuba. President Donald Trump reacted to a social media post joking about Secretary of State Marco Rubio becoming the president of Cuba. And it said, sound good to me. Someone said Marco Rubio will be the president of Cuba. He said, sounds good. Let's run it. Now, legendary YouTube channel and explainer masters on YouTube, really, Vox, they would actually cover the history between US and Cuba and basically explain how this already once before nearly led to World War III, and it now looks like Trump is pushing for total regime change in Cuba again. And let's hope this doesn't lead to yet another crisis where missile crisis. All right, America basically didn't want the Soviets to put nuclear missiles in Cuba, where they could have just blown up United States at will with nuclear weapons at any point. It makes sense. It makes absolute sense that they're not be allowed to have them, but that's why Fidel Castro played such a blinder with that, because it's like, bruh, you nearly had America basically just like in your sights, just at the end of your, you know what I'm saying? You nearly had the ups on America permanently. If the Russians were able to put nuclear weapons successfully in Cuba, the game's over with. Like, they basically got a gun to your head. This becomes so. The history of Cuba is very complicated, okay? The Americans have basically felt like, you know, the communism in Cuba and the way that they approach their economy differently to the capitalist America, which clearly, look, let's be real, all right? Whether you're on the left or the right of politics, capitalism's been pretty good for America. The absolute unchecked, untold capitalistic society that America has built, that's what basically allows America to be so tough, so strong. That's why everyone's in America so rich, because you just got this absolutely roaring open free market. And like even China, like they be trying to have a little bit of free market, but they're like, nah, we need to maintain the iron fist on our, you know, on our population. And it's communism with Chinese characteristics, maybe a few little, you know what I mean, a few little capitalist characteristics in there. But like realistically, America's unchecked capitalism is what's allowed the country to prosper so much, okay? Anybody being able to seek profits, make money, make things, build things without the government intervening to the extent that they would in other countries, that's what's allowed it to be so successful. But America don't want Cuba to get too big for their boots. They're too close. They're too much of a risk to cause problems. And Trump might be ready to step on Cuba. He might be ready for that regime change. Now, we got Iran, we got Cuba, we got Greenland. Venezuela's basically parked off now. Like, we done our thing there, basically. And, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the president's in cuffs. Like, they neutralized right now. But Colombia is still a problem. It really does look like World War III could be on the cards. I really hope that it doesn't happen. They're saying, you know, when the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was nearly World War III. China trying to invade Taiwan could be World War III. Ukraine, Russia was almost like the prelude to World War III, because the world's already warring over that bit of land. And if you look, I support Ukraine, but look, I'd be lying like if I said that, look, there's definitely troops from all the NATO countries in Ukraine, low key, doing little favors on behalf of Ukraine. And that just is what it is, okay? But low key, it's like World War III. There's British soldiers that have died in Ukraine. This World War III is low key already happening. But anyway, let me know what you guys think, man. I didn't mean to alarm you with that video. We're still covering politics on this channel. I know you guys have been enjoying the little political updates. A little bit different from my usual shtick, but I want to talk about these things. I want to share these things with you. I want to learn about these things with you guys. So I hope you found that useful and interesting. But until next time, folks, I'm out here. I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. Let me know what you thought down below, and I will get you in the next video, guys. Peace.